Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Thursday, December 31st. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi, and tonight will prove to be the first big test of San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria's new executive order. He wants police to enforce the city's COVID-19 health orders. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer says this means keeping a close eye on New Year's Eve parties.
New Year's Eve is never easy for police departments, but like it has with just about everything else in 2020, COVID-19 has created another layer of responsibilities for San Diego police tonight. Chief among them will be enforcing the executive order Mayor Todd Gloria issued Wednesday. The order directs the San Diego Police Department and City Attorney's Office to pursue fines of up to $1,000 and potentially other enforcement actions against those who defy the state and county public health orders, especially the prohibitions against parties and other gatherings.
As mayor, I cannot sit idly by as our local hospitals and morgues threaten to overflow as the coronavirus surges unchecked throughout our region.
For much of the year, police were reluctant to crack down on violators of the health order, but in a statement today, an SDPD spokesman made it clear that the mayor's order will be enforced. The police department will conduct enforcement to ensure our communities are kept safe and to help slow the spread of COVID-19 in our communities. Those who willfully violate the county and state health order may be cited. San Diego City Attorney Mara W. Elliott echoed that sentiment in her statement. I'm glad that Mayor Gloria is taking swift action to protect San Diego hospitals from becoming overwhelmed. This order affirms county and state public health mandates, including banning private gatherings of any size. In a typical year, Navy Hospital Corpsman Colton Keeler might have been planning a big night out, but tonight he plans on ringing in the new year safely on base.
We're just going to stay home, stay in the barracks, there's nothing to do, you don't want to go out, risk yourself, risk your health, anyone else's health, so stay home.
San Diego County's cumulative totals for COVID-19 have now passed 150,000 cases and are nearing 1,500 deaths. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
The county just gave its daily update. It's just over 3,000 cases with 62 deaths. It's a new daily high. At the national level, Johns Hopkins University reported 3,744 deaths over the past 24 hours. More than 10,000 Americans have died from COVID-19 just since Monday. B117 is the name of the new coronavirus variant now confirmed in San Diego County. The strain was first detected in the United Kingdom, but KPBS health reporter Taryn Mento tells us that doesn't mean it originated overseas.
In a way, the new strain was expected. UC San Diego's Davey Smith says the coronavirus changes slightly as it moves from host to host.
The virus is trying to figure out how best to infect us, and perhaps this mutation is one of those ways that the virus is learning.
And that lesson could have been learned here, even though this particular strain was first reported outside the U.S. The first Californian to have it, a San Diego man in his 30s, had no history of travel.
And if it makes a mutation that makes it what we call more fit, i.e. able to transmit faster, it could evolve that same mutation here just as well as it could someplace else.
Smith's lab at UCSD is working with Scripps Research to investigate how much more infectious it is and whether the vaccines and treatment will still work against it. Initial information suggests they will, and that it's not causing people to get sicker, but a more contagious strain could increase the risk to those already vulnerable to severe illness.
It's just going to make the winter even rougher than it is.
That could mean public health protocols may have to be even more strict, especially as we await solid confirmation that current treatments and vaccines will work against it. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
Our airports remain busy during the holidays. TSA reports another 1 million flyers passed through the gates over the past 24 hours. This is happening despite repeated pleas by health experts to just stay home. Airports have screened more than 1 million people for the past 5 days. We'll have to wait and see if this prolongs the current spike in COVID-19 cases. It was an unwanted gathering on LA's Skid Row, and we might see more of the same elsewhere tonight. A group of Christian worshipers were loudly rejected when they showed up. Rick Montanas shows us why this conflict isn't about religion, but about masks.
A very loud night on Skid Row. Homeless activists yelling for this woman to wear a mask. She refused and even tossed one aside that was handed to her.
We made it clear, if they want to come to this community with masks on, we're okay.
Pastor Q from the Church Without Walls is one of the leaders of this blockade. It stretched for several blocks, cars and people in place to stop what was planned to be a large Christian worship service to protest COVID restrictions. This is video from a recent concert in New Orleans. Christian singer and activist Sean Foyt leading what's called Let Us Worship. Thousands of people packed shoulder to shoulder there. Very few in the crowd were using masks. That was the fear for Skid Row. Local activists worried a maskless crowd could turn into a super spreader event and infect the vulnerable people living here. So the blockade set up an hour before the service was scheduled to begin.
We're just coming and just praising. You know, we're not doing anything that's illegal. We're not doing anything that's harming anyone.
Hina Sheik and a few dozen others showed up to support Let Us Worship. Some wore masks. Those who didn't were confronted for not wearing one.
As soon as a band from Let Us Worship started performing, the Skid Row activists showed up to drown them out.
And those performing did have masks on, but the crowd still didn't welcome them.
But you can't come to our community with your colonizer religion, acting like you own the place and putting people in jeopardy.
Foyt never showed up, and the large crowds never materialized. But there are plans for Let Us Worship to hold events in Echo Park and Valencia on New Year's Eve.
And that was Rick Montanez reporting. Usually at this time, more than 1 million people would be packed into New York's Times Square. But tonight, that party is canceled. Daryl Forges shows us how America will ring in a socially distant New Year.
The New Year is almost here!
The glittering crystal ball is up and ready to be dropped.
We get to say goodbye to 2020. I cannot think of a more joyous, exceptional, wonderful celebration than that.
Typically, hundreds of thousands of people pack into Midtown Manhattan to ring in the new year. But this year is anything but typical.
Don't come. Do not come to the area. If you think you're going to be able to stand there and watch the ball, you're mistaken.
Instead, the city is making room to honor this year's heroes.
It's going to definitely be magical. Those invited guests are our healthcare heroes, our essential workers who did amazing things in the year 2020 to see this city through. So that's going to be part of the magic.
It's been exactly a year since mysterious cases of sickness were first reported to the World Health Organization. Over the following 365 days, COVID-19 touched all corners of the earth and changed our way of life. Now, the world is ready for better days. From Australia to Hong Kong and beyond, fireworks lit up the sky to bid farewell to 2020. It will be a similar sight in Times Square.
One thing unifies all of us as Americans. We want to get the hell rid of 2020.
As the city brings the fun to usher in 2021.
I guarantee you I will push that button on time and make sure we get the new year immediately.
In Times Square, Daryl Forges, KPBS News.
Please join us tomorrow for a special edition of KPBS Evening Edition with some of our most memorable stories of 2020. Our reporters were there to tell you the stories of racial discrimination, injustices suffered by Indigenous people, race relations in the military, and the long journey to women's right to vote. We will look back on those stories in our New Year's Day newscast on Evening Edition. That's tomorrow at 5 and 6:30. And now it's time to remember how our nation and world changed this year. The pandemic dominated the conversation, but there was so much more that grabbed our attention. Nadia Romero has this look at the top stories of 2020.
2020 vision describes seeing things normally, but what happened before our eyes this year was in many ways nothing like we've seen before. Consider a global pandemic growing worse with surging U.S. cases, hospitalizations, and deaths. A presidential election with a conclusion.
They've delivered us a clear victory.
But not a concession. And wildfires, winds, plus the most active Atlantic hurricane season on record.
It's been a record-breaking, very busy season in 2020.
These stories could have defined 2020 on their own, yet they had plenty of company, beginning just 3 days into the year. President Donald Trump ordered a drone strike to kill top Iranian commander Qasem Soleimani.
He was planning a very major attack, and we got him.
Iran called it terrorism and attacked bases housing U.S. forces in Iraq and Afghanistan. A California helicopter crash in January shocked the world.
As the chief indicated, there were no survivors.
Retired Los Angeles Laker Kobe Bryant and his 13-year-old daughter Gianna died in the crash with the pilot and 6 more passengers on their way to Gianna's basketball game. In February, former Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein was found guilty of a criminal sex act and third-degree rape. Charges against Weinstein fueled the global Me Too movement. He is sentenced to spend 23 years behind bars. Women often took center stage. The loss of trailblazing Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg to pancreatic cancer, the appointment of Justice Amy Coney Barrett, the election of Kamala Harris as the nation's first female and Black and South Asian vice president. Yet the pandemic was always present. Unemployment jumped with jobs gone. Concerts canceled, cruises, Broadway, the Summer Olympics. When some sports resumed, athletes played in front of small or non-existent stadium crowds. People wondered, when would they see crowds again? In May, they found out. Cameras captured Minneapolis police arresting 46-year-old George Floyd. For nearly 8 minutes, now former police officer Derek Chauvin kneeled on Floyd's neck, even after Floyd became unresponsive. Chauvin and 3 other officers now face charges related to his death. The renewed calls for racial justice, which started with Floyd's death, continued. Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Rayshard Brooks, more tragic deaths that fueled a movement.
In America, you can peacefully assemble.
Black Lives Matter Plaza took shape in Washington, D.C., while Civil War monuments came down in Richmond, Virginia. The nation lost civil rights icon Congressman John Lewis, 55 years after Bloody Sunday, when he began his quest for equality. He took his final trip across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in his casket during a weekend of events celebrating his life.
Ignition. Liftoff.
The space program took off in new ways in May. SpaceX marked the first successful commercial launch, taking 2 NASA astronauts to the International Space Station from U.S. soil. 4 more astronauts went to the ISS in November. On Christmas Day, downtown Nashville was rocked by a massive explosion in the early morning hours. An RV parked outside an AT&T transmission building began broadcasting a warning before it exploded, damaging 40 buildings and injuring at least 8 people. The bomber, named by officials as 63-year-old Anthony Quinn Warner, who died at the scene. And people of all ages decided it was time to try TikTok. The Trump administration ordered the Chinese social media platform to find a U.S. owner, while millions kept using it. The app says this video got a record 528 million views, perhaps for people needing to take a break from watching all else 2020 had to offer. I'm Nadia Romero reporting.
Those earning minimum wage in California will get a bit of a raise tomorrow. Companies with 26 or more workers will be required to boost the minimum pay from $13 an hour to $14 an hour. California is one of the 20 states boosting the minimum wage in 2021. It's a much different story for federal workers, though. Their minimum wage is nearly half of California's at just $7.25 per hour, and that hasn't changed since 2009. We're also getting new protections for workers in the age of COVID-19. Capitol Public Radio's Nicole Nixon says the goal is to protect workers from catching the virus while on the job.
If you can't work remotely and have spent any time at work the past couple months, you may have received an email from HR telling you that a colleague tested positive for the coronavirus or was exposed to someone with it. Starting this year, employers will have to do that. The new law requires written notification of potential exposures in the workplace. Labor attorney Caroline Donlin says employers have an ethical duty to keep their workers safe, and many have already been doing this.
These processes are probably already in place for most employers, but now, in addition to this ethical duty, they now have a legal duty to do.
The law also requires companies to report outbreaks, defined as 3 or more cases at a job site, to their local public health department. Donlin says workers who don't feel they're getting these protections have a few options. She says it's a good idea to start by speaking with your employer first. But if that doesn't change anything, head to CalOSHA's website.
They have a hotline to call if employees have questions on things like paid sick leave, retaliation protections. And if they feel like they've gotten to the point where they want to file a complaint, that can be done completely online as well.
The last thing AB 685 does is give CalOSHA the authority to shut down work sites that aren't following these new coronavirus rules. But Donlin says the agency is already overwhelmed, so how much it actually uses that power remains to be seen. In Sacramento, I'm Nicole Nixon.
Litter at our beaches is nothing new, but the COVID-19 era is bringing a new type of trash. As Alicia Machado tells us, environmental groups are worried disposable masks are now polluting our coast.
Disposables are easy and they're winding up everywhere.
They're in the bushes and on the street, but not ending up where they should be, in the trash.
We see a lot of disposable masks on the beaches and around all the time.
Santa Cruz-based marine conservation organization Save Our Shore says the major places they see them are in grocery store parking lots and streets near beach access points. From there, they can end up in the storm drains and travel out to the ocean. Save Our Shore says a lot more research is needed to know just how many animals are being impacted by this kind of litter.
We really don't know what the impact will be. Not knowing that, we need to be extremely careful to keep it out of our ocean.
As disposable masks and gloves end up in and around our ocean, the major concern is that these items could break down into microplastics, which can block an animal's digestive tract. Much like plastic bags, which look a lot like jellyfish to sea turtles, Save Our Shores also fears some may consume PPE litter, mistaking them for a snack. But there are some ways you can reduce your impact on the environment during the pandemic. Buy reusable masks and make sure your disposable masks end up in the trash, because most are not recyclable. And if that's not enough, here's why animal lover Eleanor Leiter says you should do your part.
So all the animals don't go extinct.
That was Alicia Machado reporting. We are all being urged to stay inside this New Year's Eve, and that's probably a good idea since it will be another chilly night. Melissa Costanzer has our final forecast of 2020.
We are watching, of course, a pretty quiet trend as we close out 2020 and start out 2021. Not a whole lot happening over the next couple of hours. The weekend, though, is going to be getting a bit cooler for us as we manage to stay dry through the weekend. Questionable when we could see our next rain chance, maybe as we go into Monday night towards Tuesday. For now, though, as we look through tonight, temperatures in the 30s, 40s, pretty quiet as we go through New Year's Eve. 41 for Escondido and the low for Campo here coming in at 34. Again, quiet, dry conditions through tonight. No problems out there if you're out and about or just staying in. But high pressure keeps us pretty quiet right through tomorrow. Yeah, starting off 2021 on a nice dry note with some sunshine out there. Mild conditions as we hit 67 for San Diego. Same thing for Oceanside and Mount Laguna coming in the mid-50s. Sunshine, only a few clouds, but that dry, quiet pattern starts to shift a bit farther off towards the east. The next storm system here is working into Northern California, even portions of Central California. You might be wondering, does this push far enough south to make it into our area? The answer is no, not really. It actually kind of lifts back into Sunday. But maybe come Monday night and Tuesday, we get a little bit of this moisture to try to make an entrance into our area, but it would be fleeting, nothing like the last system where we managed to pick up a ½ inch. So for the coast, the next couple of days, we do have the mid-60s on the board here for tomorrow, but then after that, we kind of fall to the lower 60s, especially for Sunday, where we have a few more clouds to close out the weekend. Meanwhile, it's a similar trend here inland because we go from 67 to 65 on Sunday and even a bit cooler for Monday. Maybe a couple sprinkles heading into Monday night through Tuesday, but really a pretty dry time throughout the days to come. That includes in the mountains where we're holding on to the 50s. A bit breezy though, as that next storm system tries to work to the north on Monday. And then as we go through the deserts here, we're hanging out in the 60s and 70s. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Melissa Constanzer.
Few San Diego neighborhoods have been hit as hard by the pandemic as City Heights has. KPBS education reporter Joe Hong says help has come in the form of a gift certificate program for neighbors and small businesses that are in need.
Jose Nuno is the owner of La Surtidora, a party supply and convenience store in City Heights. Like so many others, he feared for his livelihood when COVID-19 first struck.
I was like, how am I going to survive if the people stop coming in?
And though he said business has ticked up during the holidays, it still isn't back to what it was before the pandemic. But thanks to a new initiative launched by the City Heights Business Association, Nuno is worrying a bit less, both for his store and for his community.
At the same time, it's helping the community, it's also helping the business, the local businesses.
Earlier this month, the Business Association raised $300,000 to purchase gift certificates from 50 local businesses. The association then gave those gift certificates to families in need. Enrique Gandaria is the Business Association's executive director.
Small businesses have been hurt so much as a result of the lockdowns and the restrictions, and they're really bearing the brunt of this crisis.
Gandaria said the gift certificate program could have long-term benefits for businesses in one of the city's lowest income neighborhoods.
The business is getting additional customers, as well as possibly new customers that may have never been there before that are now discovering this business in their neighborhood.
Meanwhile, Nuno says it is clear that the gift certificates are going to those who need them most.
What I noticed, the people that came in with the certificates were actually, I could see people in need. And what they got is milk, eggs, bread, food.
Right now, the program is still in its pilot phase, but it'll likely grow in the coming weeks.
It really gave them a little push in these tough times. That's what I decided to participate. And like I said, I wish it could continue forever.
Joe Hong, KPBS News.
And more time at home this year has led to a boom in pet adoption. Our furry friends will be with us into the new year and might even help us achieve our New Year's resolutions. Mandy Gaither tells us how pets can play an active role in our health in 2021.
Whether you prefer cats, dogs, or some other furry friend, pets aren't just animals. They can be family and can be good for our health.
They get us out moving. We can go out and walk with our pets, run if we're runners, take them hiking, and even cats can enjoy walking on a harness or even going out in a stroller.
Timma Martin with Utah's Best Friends Animal Society says if your resolution is to be healthier, let your pet be your partner in exercise and stress relief.
Just get comfortable, relax, breathe deeply, be present in the moment, and pet your dog or cat and feel that release of the pressure of our lives these days.
Believe it or not, pets can also help you eat better. Try eating something you can share in moderation.
Blueberries, carrots, apple slices. So when you have those healthy snacks around, you can eat them and your pet can enjoy them as well.
Need to get out of the house? Let your pet motivate you to venture out.
Beaches, state parks, local landmarks are a great place to just go sightseeing and feel like you're getting away for a minute.
If the pandemic has made you feel isolated, your pet can help you be social.
They're natural icebreakers and a great way to meet like-minded people. You can play frisbee, play fetch, just get out there and, stay safely socially distanced and enjoy some outside time and, talk to some other people as well.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley. And by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Many 18-year-olds are just finishing their first semester in college. One San Marcos teen has been preparing for one of the toughest off-road races in the world this weekend. Mission Hills High graduate Seth Quintero spent Christmas in Saudi Arabia to prepare for the 2021 Dakar Rally this Sunday. It's a tough 14-day race through the desert and along the Red Sea.
This is a race that I've never done before. It's a race that the world only sees once a year for a reason. So it's going to be a long one. It's going to be tough, but I'm looking forward to it.
And he has a very impressive background. He was a world champion at 11 years old, long before he was legally even able to drive. And at 18, he is now one of the youngest drivers in Dakar. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us tonight and throughout what's been a very challenging year. It's already 2021 in many parts of the world, and we leave you with some of the countdowns and fireworks celebrations across the globe. Have a great evening and stay safe.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.